Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for episode 2 of the 52 Love podcast. This week, I have two guests with me. I know these two from Henderson Writers Group. Juliet and Gino, will you please introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Juliet Ruiz, and I'm a member, have been a member of the writing group for a while, and am lucky to be now on the board. I write fiction, I write nonfiction. We have a little private practice that we work at, and that's pretty much about it, I think.
Hi, I'm Gino Ruiz, her husband. I write primarily historical fiction right now, centering on World War II. As she said, we have a private practice, and I am her emotional support husband.
What does that mean?
Well, especially in these times, Juliet has a very emotionally demanding job. It's very emotionally draining. But the work she does is really really important, and so I'm there to be sort of like her backstop or her spare battery, so that when she's finding it tough, I find ways to make it easier for her.
So, what kind of practice do you have, Juliet?
I have a clinical psychotherapy practice that primarily focuses on death, dying, and grief, and all sorts of taxing things. As
Yeah.
Gino said, I work with a lot of trauma. I work with a lot of people in the LGBTQ community. I work with a lot of people who are grieving. And I'm a thanatologist, with Thanatos being the Greek god of death and thanatology being an expert in all those things. And it's incredible work. It's amazing. It's wonderful seeing the people I work with move through the process and emerge transformed because of it, and pulling on their strengths and discovering who they are. And it's quite wonderful. It's intense. It's definitely intense. So I lean on Gino a lot.
Does any of that ever find its way into your writing?
It is. It is, yes. It's starting to much more. I've discovered that I have a knack for writing nonfiction. I've written it before. I had an essay that I submitted to a contest back in the '90s when I was in college, and on family and human relations in the 21st century, and it won me a trip to Korea and $10,000. And I don't think I will ever be paid that much for an essay again in my entire existence.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And I've written a few other things, but now I'm really focusing on the grief aspect within my nonfiction. And from the feedback I'm getting, it seems that I'm putting some good stuff out there. But this is very new, and I'm excited to see it. It's wonderful writing it and just seeing what unfolds. Um, so yes, it works. It definitely works its way into my nonfiction and also into my fiction, where I write about gods who, when they're traumatized, very different things happen, and yet very similar things happen. So that's my fiction realm.
And in my work, Juliet does help a good number of veterans, obviously, because they come back with PTSD, they come back with issues, and Juliet has been very successful in helping a number of them. And sort of peripherally, I also have contact with her clients, talking sometimes about things that seem innocuous to them, but I can see and get a feel for uh, some of the struggles they currently have. And it does help me in my writing, especially with the historical fiction and World War II military fiction.
I was just about to ask that. Like, how does it affect your work? And you're on it.
Yeah, well, it does. I haven't served. I did not have that privilege. And I have not experienced the kind of trauma that some of these people have. So it gives me a perspective, a feel, I don't know if it's the right word, but of a flavor to the writing that I otherwise would not be able to have even the smallest inkling.
So, what originally drew you to write about this if you didn't have the experience yourself?
Well, growing up, I'm 50 now, so a lot of my early formative TV watching was broadcast of old films. And in the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of war films.
Yeah.
And being a young rural boy, it just appealed. It was a world outside of my own because you got to see Europe and the South Pacific and all
Yeah.
of these locales, which aren't the focus of the film, but they're there and they're the flavor and and the whole macho man fighting thing appealed to the little boy in me, and that's where I got my interest. I developed interests in the machines of war, how the performance, how they built them, and it developed a lifelong interest in militaria.
Well, how long have you two been a couple?
We've been a couple since right around. Well, we were married in 2003. Yes, three.
Quiz time.
Two, the end of
Oh,
2002.
I'm sorry.
Numbers.
When
They're
you're
so
quarantined
hard.
for an entire year, you tend to lose that. So yeah, 2002 is the year we were married. So 18 years married, and then a little bit before that, because we were friends and acquaintances.
We were engaged for 11 days, and we just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary.
Oh, well, happy anniversary.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So it's a sweet love story.
Well, this week's tip was to sit and have a meaningful conversation where you really listen to your partner. And so I'm curious with you two, how frequently do you incorporate that into your lives with, free of distractions where you just sit and listen to each other?
Well, being the emotional support husband, it's usually me listening to Juliet because she has long hours of intense contact with people where she has to deal with emotions. She has to maybe not take on their emotions and their problems, but she has to empathize at a very deep level. So it's a lot like living through all of these, except it's not just one person's emotions. It's a dozen, 20 different people throughout the week.
Yeah, so I imagine she's taking all of that in and she needs an outlet for that.
Right. And there are times, on a day off, sitting around, with the TV muted, talking about not specific patients, but issues that she's having to deal with, or she's fighting to try to find a perspective where she can find a better empathy, a better understanding of what she's dealing with. And a lot of times we talk about that just so that she can find ways to connect better and help these people better. And sometimes it's just about her own worries or problems, or it's about, it's also about...
or our friends. We have some intense friends.
Yeah, because again, with the whole quarantine thing, your close community gets very tight because you don't have the same kind of outlets with the people you're running into the store or larger gatherings. We've contracted into a very tight-knit groups, and so a lot of the emotional overspill there is not at levels that we normally deal with, or we've grown to deal with.
And one thing about the communication piece, and it was about asking your blog episode was about asking the other person without any distractions how their day was.
Right.
And one thing I learned from that is context is important, because I asked him 3 times on 3 different end of day moments, and sometimes he wasn't really in a talking mood, and was, I think one answer when I said, "How was your day?" you said, "Dayish."
Yeah.
And but there was also a time where he really shared with me all the things he had done and what he had thought. And it's challenging because we've basically been rattling around in this space.
Right.
So we kind of know pretty much what we've done, but we don't pay attention to that. So it my experience in doing that exercise was to hear more about his perspective of what I am seeing that's happening.
Yeah.
And it was nice, and it was very nice to take that extra moment to focus on him rather than just being like, okay, that's great. Now let's get the disc done or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Do you think that you will try to incorporate this more frequently in your lives?
Probably.
Yeah, we both can sometimes, well, we are protective of one another, and we don't want to, maybe not the right word, but burden each other with our own issues. And in the past, sometimes, we either one of us would let it stew a little bit until the other finally managed to get the other person to open up. And then because it's been stewing for a little bit, it's either amplified maybe a little bit, kind of like when you reduce a stock to make it concentrated. It seems all tight and tied up and twisted up and more real maybe than it might be, or has just caused more turmoil. So I think we're getting a little bit better at recognizing when things are stewing and that the other needs to open up a bit, just for a breath of fresh air, just for a breather, just for a chance to step back and examine what's really going on, because maybe what we're thinking about isn't the root cause, it's an effect.
Mm-hmm.
Cause effect. Yeah, that's the right way it goes. And we really need to refocus and look at the cause, because that's where you find all of your solutions, when you understand the cause, not the effects.
Right. And giving the gift of your attention to really draw out whatever is beneath the surface. I mean, that's
Right.
truly a way to connect and understand what is happening with your partner.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And to slow down.
Right.
Sometimes, especially with before we went live, you and I were having a conversation about Manhattan culture, and which is
Right.
where I come from. And it's boom, 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 get things done, get things done. And when Gino said, I have 12 to 20 patients a day, it's more like 30 to 35. It's a week, a day. Hello, a week. And plus I'm writing. So I really kind of have two jobs. Plus I have, my passions like the writers
Mhm.
group and, Netflix and coffee and all these things. And sometimes I get very task oriented. Okay, we got to do this. We got to do that. We got to do, let's go, 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 go. And trying to get people into the same sort of energy that I'm in. And it's like, okay, wait, slow your roll. That's your energy. Calm down. Take a moment to just be present, which is something, I should be teaching myself in addition to other people. And so it's nice to kind of, that little pause just doesn't enough of a shift in that intense energy. So that was a nice effect of doing the exercise.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a bit about what you two do for Henderson Writers Group.
What do we do? I am the membership development coordinator. I think I got that right. So
Yes.
my job, as soon as I get my Henderson Writers Group email up, is to remind people that their memberships are due, do things to encourage people to join. Gino last year, and I'm not going to volunteer him.
I thought I already sort of volunteered.
Okay, he volunteered. Okay.
Well, last year I was part of the crew that scrambled together and put together a surprisingly successful writers conference. Normally it's an in-person thing, but as everybody knows, in March hit, quarantine hit, and the next month we really
It
lot of
was
real work.
14 days. Okay, 14 days.
Yeah,
He helped
14
us
days.
transition the conference into an online event.
Yes.
An amazing feat.
It, on everybody's part. When you really consider that no one had any real experience in conducting an entire conference with multiple programs, multiple days, multiple speakers, bringing that all together in a short amount of time and having it be, well, not only actually happen, but have it be worthwhile and informative and educative for the participants was really an incredible feat. And I'm proud for my part that I had in bringing that off.
You were an amazing help. I mean, I can testify. Wolf was the one who really, pulled together the online portion of it, but you were definitely a driving force in helping us, the stuff that we weren't thinking about, and we never had to worry about whether Gino was on top of something.
Well, yeah, but for all of us, it was a 3-day sprint.
Yeah.
Just keeping up with everything, all the challenges. You remember Zoom, the platform we were using, had changed a lot of the ways that it actually worked. So
right,
we
during the conference.
scrambling to rearrange how we did things so that we could still get the content to all the participants.
By the way, today we introduced passwords.
Yeah.
And what's phenomenal is I was very marginally involved in it, but what was phenomenal is you all pulled off a fantastic conference.
Well, thank you.
It was really, I mean, you would not necessarily know as an attendee, which primarily I was, that that any of this was going on in the background.
Well, that's the goal. I mean, that's true for an in-person conference too. There are plenty of people hustling and bustling and pulling strings and juggling. The attendees shouldn't know.
And that was accomplished, which is wonderful. And hopefully for this
Gino was a huge reason why.
And I'm excited for this year's conference. Super, super excited.
Well, thank you both for being here. Will you tell us where we can find you online and how we can support you?
I have a website. So this is my book. I write under the name J. Alex Ruiz. This is the first edition. A second edition is is coming out in the spring or summer of this year, along with the second book. So there'll be sort of an updated version of this, and then the second book. And so you can get it on Amazon. And I have a website that's really pretty much a link to email me or to get the book, which is Jalix Ruiz, JALEXRUIZ.com. And Henderson Writers Group, you can put that up there so people know how to find the group. I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't have much of an online presence by choice right now. When I'm getting closer to publishing, of course, that will change. But right now, I like to be in the background.
So the best thing we can do to support you is to support Juliet.
Yes, support my wife, please.
She needs a break. It's a vacation.
You guys are adorable.
We all need a vacation.
I know.
Well, thank you both very much for being my second guests. I appreciate it so much, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the tip. And I hope you will continue to watch the series as we go along.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And thank you for having us, and best of luck to you on all these endeavors.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
So thank you very much for being here, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Just remember that love is a verb, and I'll see you next time.